Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Mission Matters. My name is Adam Torres, and if you'd like to apply to be a guest on the show, just head on over to missionmatters.com and click on Be Our Guest to Apply. All right, so today is a very special episode. We're welcoming back Brooke Sousa, who I'm proud to announce is an author, and we finally released the book at our best-selling Business Leaders book series, which did go to #1 on new releases. And Brooke, hey, first, I just want to say welcome back to the show.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so I'm excited to have you back, and I know we're also hosting an event together on July 19th in downtown Los Angeles, and where you're gonna be headlining and speaking and really educating us all on real estate investing, and some of the projects that you're working on. So we got a whole lot coming up, but as you know, we'll start this episode the way that we start them all, with our Mission Matters Minute. Brooke, we at Mission Matters, we amplify stories for entrepreneurs, executives, and experts. That's our mission. Brooke, what mission matters to you?
The mission that matters to me most right now in this journey with real estate investing with Brooke Sousa Capital is helping new investors get started in investing in real estate, providing that, passive income to their portfolio and to their families, and allowing more freedom to do the things that matter.
Yeah. Love having you on the show, and love bringing on mission-based individuals who are helping others really achieve their goals. And one of the big things that you're doing through real estate. So good stuff here. Well, we got a lot to cover today. So of course, we're going to talk about the book. So from flipping tires to flipping houses, what a great line. And of course, we're going to be talking about the launch of your real estate fund. So I'm so excited and thrilled and to bring this to our audience. But before we get into all that, maybe let's just kind of take a step or two back, because I don't want to assume that maybe all our new listeners or viewers caught some of the previous work we've done together. So maybe just tell us a little bit more about how you got started in real estate.
Well, real estate kind of just fell into my lap in August of 2020. I was losing my personal training business with COVID and people not being able to come into the gym. I had a 6-figure business there as a personal trainer in Columbus, Ohio, along with my online clients. So now I started educating myself about real estate, and not only the business side, but also how to do the work inside the houses, learning to raise other, capital with other people's money to get started. And I bought my first house almost 2 years ago.
Yeah. And so I want to stay in those earlier days a little bit longer here, because there'll be some people that are watching this that maybe don't have much experience in real estate, or they're just kind of getting started. So what was that like for you, just getting that first house and getting your feet wet?
Well, the first house was the most nerve-wracking one as for any investor. But I also told myself for 13 years I would never buy a house again after 2008 market crash. So here I am. I'm like, okay, I'm going to purchase this house for $35,000. I'm going to put $15,000 into it. What's the worst that could happen, right? I could go through all this and learn something new, spend my time. I had a lot of extra time on my hands. And I was just like, okay, if all else fails, I can still recover. And at least I learned something.
Yeah. And so as you kind of went from one house, where did this transition go? Or maybe it was always the vision. I don't know. When did that transition happen, or how did it happen to where you're like, okay, I can do this, and then to that next stage of okay, I can really do this, and maybe I can help others.
I think it really stems from my past, right? So when I first went and did my very first competition as a strong woman as an amateur, okay, I was like, okay, well, I'll go and do this, pro bono, it was a competition to raise money for a charity, okay? And so I was like, all right, well, I'll go ahead and go and compete. And people are like, oh, you're going to do one and be done, right? And I was like, oh, no, I'm going to be world's strongest woman someday. And they're like, oh, well, okay. So I think with real estate, you go and do your first one, I'm like, you're not going to go learn all of this just to do one. Yeah. And then when somebody was like, oh, well, you can go ahead and retire back in February of 2023. And I was like, I didn't come this far just for me to not continue.
Yeah.
And therefore, back then I was a personal trainer. After, putting myself through these different journeys, I'm like, okay, now I would love to go and coach other people through their own personal situation. And the same thing carried over into real estate. I'm like, once I learned, how to do it myself and be successful at it. Let me go ahead and, teach others too.
Hmm. And so now you're at this next stage in your career, and I think this is a good time to kind of bring up that you're launching your fund. So I think this is a great time. Maybe give us a little bit more of kind of the track record and where you've been up to now, and then why you're launching a fund now.
Well, I started out where, a lot of banks wouldn't lend to me being a first time investor, right? And I understand why, especially as I've partnered with people along the way. And it's like, okay, a lot of people, it's like all fun and, dandy to get started. But then when the real work starts, people quit. And I want to partner with people who are like, show them a way, like, okay, this happens. This is normal, during the, phases of a house inside of the property, not alone on the business side. And a lot of people wouldn't lend to me, right? On that first one. I'm like, all I need is you just to believe in me for one house. And a guy I used to personal train at the fire department, he was my investor on that very first house. And so using other people's money is like how I got started, right? And it built up over to now, I think I have like 32 million in real estate.
Yeah.
And like I said, it just needed that first 50K, just get me started, right?
Yeah.
And so that's where I'm at with like the fund, where I'm like, okay, a lot of people don't understand how I can raise other, capital and how I can build this business. And therefore, like, I want to break it down because it's really simple, but people just overcomplicate things, or they don't want to take the time to help somebody else.
Yeah.
And that's really like my core value of my business is like paying it forward and also operating on how things used to be back in the day.
How many houses have you flipped up to like now? Like roughly, I'm not holding you to the number because I know you got probably deals in the pipeline right now. Not probably. I know you still.
Yeah, about 20 minutes from looking at another one. But
got a little ticker in the background. It's cool.
Yeah. But it's like one of those things where I think right now I'm at over 132.
Wow. Can't keep up. This is great. Talk a little bit more about maybe some of the markets that you tend to favor and maybe just your investment like ideology in general.
Oh, this is a good one. So a lot of people think like, oh, okay, you just want the cosmetic, the quick turnaround. And I'm like, I've done a house in a 3-day flip. Okay. Made a lot of money on that one. But I love like the rough houses, the ones that nobody wants to pay attention to, just as in like my clients. I love taking my clients who are like so out of shape and we're so far from their goal to make them, reach their goal. And so that's how I look at these houses too. I'm like, oh man, I want the ones that have like foundation problems and like, we got to get rid of the plaster. We got all this old electrical. Like I want to make these homes, livable again for people to have memories with their families and to, just bring back life, I think we're missing that not only in our community but also in these homes. And like, just because something's bad or ugly or not attractive, right, doesn't mean you have to turn your back on helping it. And that goes as far as like people and in the houses. So I love like buying in really D houses is how people would rate them in real estate, and like a B plus, A minus neighborhood. Yeah. So really taking the crappiest house on the street and bringing it back to life. And I have a place, several here in Columbus, Ohio, also out in Newark, Ohio, where Intel is building, and obviously a lot more growth as Columbus expands. Then my favorite spots down in Florida is Cape Coral and Fort Myers from obviously the hurricane, and just taking something there that people can't fix themselves and bringing back their community down there too.
Now, when you're talking about rehab in these houses, especially when you're going for the least of these houses, right? Let's say, had to bring in a little reference there, but then like you must have some like boots on the ground. Like, how are you managing all of this workflow? Because as you mentioned, with some of these larger issues, like these are bigger projects, right?
Yes, they are. And it's constantly having your eyes on each one. But now, like, I'm down to my last 6. Like, we've done 69 already this year.
Yeah.
And so like the last 6, you're like, okay, well, there's my problem children, right? And we're just like, and then you just dial down on those and you get them in order, and it's all fine once you're out in the punch out phase.
Is there any, like, in looking for these deals, like how do you find them? Like what's your process to find new deals?
It all started like obviously when I was 8 years old and how to talk to people and how to build those relationships, but it carried on into the last 2 years where I've built relationships with other people who are out there looking for the houses as realtors or wholesalers. And they know that even during this market transition or shift, you want to call it, the last 6 months, like I continued to not live in that fear, but if the numbers made sense, then to continue to buy. So I have those, wholesalers and realtors that noticed I was like, kept on being consistent in during the last 6 months, that I kind of get like top choice in which ones are out and that they have their hands on in contract for me to look at and go and purchase myself.
Yeah. That's great. That's great. And you did mention, so Ohio, and Florida, two your primary markets. Are you finding deals right now? Like, are you seeing things that are interesting?
Well, they're always interesting, right? Just because
Yeah.
you can doesn't mean you always should. So there's some like Florida has slowed down. We just got done doing like 6 over the last 8 weeks down there.
Mm-hmm.
And so now they're on the market, and now I'm looking for more in Fort Myers. Also just signed up my business to be a part of the FEMA like rescue and help recover a lot of these properties from the very beginning of any damage, really. In North Carolina, Florida, and I think Kentucky is the other state that I would be able to go in and help.
Tell me a little bit more about the vision for your fund and really why you're launching it.
Well, there's like so many different parts there. So the biggest part, I think the fund really gives opportunity for investors who are like, okay, look, we want to make this passive income, but we don't want to do what you want that you do, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, all right, that's fine. Like there's a reason why I'm in position to be able to handle the things on the streets, so other people don't have to, right? And then I have, obviously my compliance officer who will handle the fund where it keeps me going and everybody, be able to make money off the fund. So just bringing opportunity to people on the real estate side, but then also growing the people who are on the streets with me. Like it's really exciting for me to bring an income for the families that all work for me.
No, that's awesome. All right, I wanna switch focus slightly here for a moment or two, and from flipping tires to flipping houses. I'm so thrilled and excited to be able to publish your work and to get your words out really to our audience over at Mission Matters. Like, what was the inspiration for this writing?
I've been told for a couple of years now to write something, and I'm like, all right, well, this is a start, right? Just in how I was world's strongest woman to now flipping houses. So you guys really encouraged that out of me to be able to publish something and tell a little bit of my story. And I really appreciate the opportunity there.
Yeah. Walk us through a little bit of the writing, a little bit of the story more.
All
I
right.
don't want to, I know you as world's strongest woman, but everybody else may not unless you Google her. If you Google her, she's everywhere. But to walk us through the story a little bit more.
So in this story, we really talk about how I've taken, the people that worked along the side with me and helped them grow in their businesses too, from different situations, from my contractor that was in prison that I hired right out of prison and grew him, and to being a contractor himself and then set up to buy his own properties. Wow. Also another investor who bought his first house and didn't realize how scary of a situation he was walking into, and just showing him the road of like, look, it's not a problem. This is how we handle it. And now we have, several properties together, and he's got a couple million in real estate himself. So like, that's exciting to me. Like it just breaking it down, having somebody to grow with. And a lot of that book just talks about that process.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting because as you name these individuals, like what I've seen, what I've noticed, and we've had conversations offline about this, is really that concept of like community and bringing those communities together, whether it was your physical training business, whether it was your, you training personally for the, Arnold Classic and all these other events that you competed in, or whether it was now real estate, like, and you're even building a community through that. Like I rarely hear about syndicators or things like that are, helping others build their own businesses as well as you're doing. Like, tell me a little bit more about your concept and kind of your thoughts on community.
Well, I really missed so much of what was taken away from me with COVID, right? Like I didn't ask for that. And yes, I know nobody really asked for that, but it's, usually you get to like say when you want things to be over with. And I didn't get to have that opportunity with my personal training business. Yeah. And so I was like, well, depressed and sad. I'm like, okay, well, how can I create this, love and loss that I have for my personal training business into what I do now? And when I was looking at it, I'm like, you know what? Like, it didn't matter if it was the 10-year-old in the gym telling the 69-year-old lady what to do.
Mhm.
Like, I had everybody in community there. And so now I have the youngest kid that works for me now is 12 years old. And I don't care if the 12-year-old's going and telling the 58-year-old guy what to do in the house. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or if it's the 69-year-old lady who now invests with me in real estate, then it's like I have a lot of my old clients who like play a part in my real estate business now. And to me, I'm like, okay, each person has something to offer in this
Mhm.
world, but are you using your talents and your gifts at your highest life, right?
Mm.
And to those around you and to the lives of those around you. And so as soon as I can spot that in each person, I'm like, you know what? I got a place for you. Oh,
Yeah.
you know what? I don't care that you're not invested in this house, that house, or the other house. I need this. And it's just so neat how they support other people's deals too.
Mm.
And when you build that, it's like, okay, there are like how many eyes? It's not just me handling, all these houses. I have different people handling multiple houses.
Mhm.
And to me, I'm like, okay, you're using their strengths and you're creating an opportunity for them to be creative as well. A lot of
Mhm.
times you're told, like, oh, no, you can't do that. Or no, that's the wrong color. You shouldn't think that way. And I just give these houses as a platform for everybody to
Mm.
learn because
Mm.
that $35,000 house was my canvas to learn.
Yeah.
Okay. There are mistakes. And you know what? Everything's fixable.
Yeah.
There is nothing that you can't recover from. It's just, a house. It's just, whether it's drywall and you want to learn how to mud, okay, go for it. I don't want to do it, but I had to go through that to know these things. And
Yeah.
then it was my daughter learning how to run wire, and she was just
Mhm.
like, oh my gosh, I want to learn electrical. And so it's like, okay, you don't know the things that you don't know until you get to try it. And this is the opportunity for people to try.
Mm. Mm. As others are going through their journey, whether it's entrepreneurship or otherwise, like what are some things that as they're going through it, like that, now that you can obviously have the benefit of hindsight, right? As you went through building your real estate business and you're continuing to add on to it. Like what are some things that you would tell them along the way on their journey that kind of help them get through, especially when we're talking about those big pivots, like as you mentioned, COVID, like this was technically a big pivot and blessing, really, like for where I see that you've come from as well. I mean, you had a successful business, then another one now, but what are some things that you would tell them during these big pivotal times?
Thing is, you have to like look at down the road of like, why do you want anything to be, change in your life or to be better, right? And when you can focus on like, all right, things come a lot faster than what we ever planned for. And so it's like, if you don't act now, you will never be where you want to be in
Mm.
6 months from now, a year from now. And you can sit there and be like, man, it's funny because this morning, like, sorry, one off here, but
Do
like
it.
my daughter goes like, mommy, like, that's like really cheap gas. And I was like, you know what, Zoe, it's been a while since I've even looked at gas prices. But because like last summer, I let it take up so much space in my mind of like, I don't know
Mm.
how people afford this. Like, if I didn't have real estate, like, how could I afford this? How could I afford that? And then I'm like, oh my gosh, I forgot because 2 years ago, I kept on acting as if I had no
Mm.
time. And I had no time because I knew I was losing those personal training clients to provide an income for my family. And so I just, okay, head down, grind, right?
Yeah.
And that's the biggest thing. Like, okay, people can sit around and talk about, oh man, I always wanted to do this and I always wanted to do that. But I'm like, are you not worried about running out of time? So the
Yeah.
biggest thing, and I'm not even talking about on a daily, like with your life, right?
Yeah.
And so, okay, that extra $500 a month, that extra $1,000 a month in interest payments that, these new investors could get by, investing in Brooke Sousa Capital Fund, where it's like that could provide another trip, right?
Yeah.
I mean, to me, I'm like, a lot of times once a month, just give me a little road trip and I'm happy, right?
Yeah.
It resets your mind. It stimulates the creativeness in your head and knowing
Mm.
where you want to go in life. And it's like those little things. It doesn't have to be like, oh my gosh, I got to go travel once a month and spend 20K on a trip. Like, yeah,
Mhm.
you could, depending on where you are and the investment and whatnot. But at the same time, like people are stressed right now on the streets of just like, how do you feed your family and put gas in the
Mm.
car?
Mm.
So that's where I'm like, okay, you have to look at your goals of like, how much more do you want for yourself and in your
Yeah.
life and your family? And to me,
Mm.
I'm like, I will go through all of this, not only for myself, but to teach other people, seeing the freedom behind it.
No, that's great. And now you're also speaking of coaching and the idea of maybe formalizing a little more. I know it's just some things that you haven't, we're
It's
not
in the
doing yet,
pipeline.
but I think you're gonna continue to possibly go down that route and maybe
Yes.
start teaching people even more in a more formalized manner. Am I off on that or?
Nope, it's in the pipeline, and we got it in the works to basically set that up in here in the next 2 weeks and have it open.
Oh, that's awesome. That's what I like to hear. I like to hear it because really what I've seen you've been able to do is you've been able to obviously do yourself first. You learned, you went through your own process. Now you found a way to, give back and to share that knowledge with others, which is to me, that's kind of where that multiplying effect has an opportunity to take hold. So I think it's awesome.
Thank you.
Well, Brooke, I just have to tell you, it has been great having you back on. We have an event coming up July 19th. Are you excited?
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. I'm happy that my girls get to be on this end of it. Because it's just like 5 years ago, they got to see me like on a magazine cover. And now here they're just seeing the growth of from never wanting to read a book to now writing a book and launching the fund.
Wow, it all comes full circle, and I'm
Yes.
excited to continue to watch your growth. That being said, I mean, what's next? I mean, what's next for you? What's next for the fund and the vision? What's next?
Oh my gosh, what's next? In the next 6 months, I see, just traveling the world to go and speak, also having more people to coach through this journey, and my third book. Third
Oh,
book.
you are busy, busy. That's what I like to hear. And if people that are watching or listening to this, what's the best way for them to connect if they want to learn more and talk more about Brooke Sousa Capital?
So you can find me on Instagram right now at Brooke Sousa. You can also, we got a website launching here soon, so stay tuned for that one.
Fantastic. And we'll put all that information in the show notes as well so that people can, just click on the links and head right on over. And speaking of the audience, if this is your first time with Mission Matters or listen to an episode, we're all about bringing on business owners, entrepreneurs, executives, having them share their mission, the reason behind their mission, why they do what they do. If that sounds interesting or fun or exciting to you, we welcome you. Hit that subscribe button. We have many more mission-based individuals coming up on the line, and we don't want you to miss a thing. Brooke, really, it has been a pleasure. Thank you so much for coming back on the show, and I can't wait to see you on the 19th in person again. It's been a while.
It has. Thank you so much.